Hey guys, welcome to the Xplor Show. Really excited to have a amazing guest on today, Mario out of Greenville, South Carolina. Mario, how are we doing today, man?
Hey, it's sunny. The weather's good. We love fall in the South. Things are good, Scott. Thank you.
Fall in the South. Tell us a little bit about yourself. So, we got to talking, and actually, you say Greenville. Greensville is a booming market in the industrial sector. That's kind of where we were talking to start. You got the I-85 corridor there. The industrial space out there has blown up. Are you
It
seeing
has.
that?
Yeah, in different ways, right? So industrial, I think, reflects the greater immigration trend. Obviously, with more folks moving here, living here, needing that last mile delivery, it's really been I won't say peculiar, but an interesting sight to see our highways just kind of flooded with tilt
One
wall
after
tilt wall
another.
construction.
Yeah, it does that drive the population up quite a bit, or a lot of these more high-end manufacturing where they're not needing as much employee base? What does that look like for you guys?
So historically, Greenville is a skilled labor market. We won't go too far back, but during the industrialization of the South after post Civil War, mill owners and textile owners would locate their mills here and
Okay.
really leverage the skilled labor that existed. They build mill villages. And really, we're not so far disconnected from that as we've got skilled labor in a different format now. So BMW produces every X5, X7 in the world. They produce that in the upstate. We've got Lockheed Martin and Michelin and Floor Daniel and
You guys recently got Toyota out there as well, didn't you? Didn't Toyota just put a
so
facility?
I think Toyota, I think they were considering Greenville or the upstate, but I think
Maybe they're in Strasbourg, actually, now that I
yeah,
say that.
yeah, we are one of the considerations, but throughout the state. So Volvo's down in the lower part of the state. We've got an inland port that allows BMW to get their cars they produce in the upstate all the way down to the deepest harbor on the eastern seaboard, which is Charleston. So it really is a place that's leveraged skilled labor. So when jobs do locate here, all the subsidiary companies that feed BMW that supply chain, there's a big staff load, and the kind of what we'll talk about is one of the major problems is who cares if you bring jobs if you don't bring any housing,
Yep.
right?
And not only housing, but let's get right into that. What you specialize in over here, Mario, affordable housing, right?
Yeah, that's right. So affordable workforce housing, subsidized housing could also be a term. I think before jumping into it, Scott, I'd like to just give a little preface on what affordable housing is, because
Please. A lot of
it's
people don't
such a
understand. It's a buzzword that's become so popular, and people don't realize it's so many more things than just affordable housing.
right, absolutely. So talking to our 100+ investors over the years and really trying to educate them and listening to what their kind of natural opinion is
That's the
of
right way of saying it.
natural opinion of affordable housing. They really, in their mind's eye, they're thinking about projects. They're thinking about Reagan's welfare queen. They're thinking about folks that don't go to work every day.
The thing
Uh,
about slums,
yep,
dirty people, bad problems,
correct,
theft.
correct. So this is the best way in my just kind of my experience to kind of explain affordable housing. It's made up of three categories. So top to bottom, and it's all based on median income. I think you can't understand affordable housing if you don't understand how it's measured relative to income. So area median income, or AMI, is a metric that the government and everyone else uses to determine what affordable housing is and who that affordable housing is for based on income. I also love to tell people, like, a very plain fact about themselves and me is that you live in affordable housing and I live in affordable housing.
Yep.
Housing affordable to us, right? Based on our
Exactly right.
right affordable based on our incomes. We went to the bank, they did our debt to income ratio, and they said X.
That's
So
one of the best ways I've heard that put. I don't
yeah,
know that I've ever heard anybody say that before.
So really, when you think about it, just like that bank looks at that front end ratio, which is around 30%, that's what
Yep.
the government uses. They say that no more than 30% of one's income should be paid toward housing. Anything above that, and this person's considered house burdened. The bank has a term too for us. It's debt burdened, right?
Yep.
So it's a very parallel track in terms
Now
of.
let's stop there real quick. So you're saying the government says 30%, and if you're spending over more than 30%, then you are house poor, essentially, right?
Mhm.
But the banks will loan you up to what, 47%, I believe?
So that's on the back end ratio, as you know, Scott. So on that back end ratio, the house payment plus all the installment and revolving
Yep.
debt, they will let you go higher on the back end. We're just talking about that front end ratio.
Got you. Got you. Okay. Okay.
Yep, yep. So 30. So if we take 30%, and that's what affordable housing is, right? Regardless of what you make, if you make $1 million a month or $10 a month. So now let's talk about the people in our communities that don't make the median income.
And real quick, 30% of gross or net adjusted income.
Gross.
Okay. Perfect. Just wanted to clarify that for the listeners.
Yep. So $10,000 a month and $3,000 would be what the government
What's affordable, quote
will
unquote.
consider affordable. Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. Perfect.
So that to say, we're talking about individuals that live at or below the median income when we talk about affordable housing, right? So individuals that in Greenville, our AMI is, I believe it's $72,500. So that is the benchmark. So when we talk about the types of affordable housing that are available to people, you start with workforce housing, teachers, cops, baristas, folks that are living at, let's call it 80 to 120% of AMI. Below that category is what I would really consider that missing middle. That I consider that true affordable housing. So from 80% to, let's call it 40%, and then below that, from 40 to 0 is subsidized housing, right? Those folks making 40% of the median income or below, that's where the government is most involved, right? Because you hear about programs like LIHTC or the low income housing tax credit, where the government builds
Section 8, all of those things.
Correct. So for us, over the years, we've really developed an understanding and a mission around our business to deliver workforce and affordable housing to our community. In some sense, you could, consider us value add investors, and our value add is one, the redevelopment of the physical asset, but also on the layering of incentives that the property qualifies for. Example, property tax abatements. So we have 1,500 units spread throughout the upstate of South Carolina, and all of our deals are within that missing middle, that 40 to 80% AMI bucket, and each and every one of them qualifies for a property tax abatement. And we'll talk about this later in the conversation on how that looks on the ground and how we handle tenants, and really some really cool things we're doing with our property management company. But it's a good subject.
A great start to the conversation. No, I think you're right on a roll, man. I think we just keep going here. So Affordable Upstate, that's your company, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, Affordable Upstate. And you guys started, I mean, you aren't that old. You're only 5-6 years old, maybe a little older.
Yeah. So Scott, really, my business partner and I met in a program called Leadership Greenville. Every chamber of commerce in the country has a program like this where they take young leaders, expose them to all the issues in the community. Kind of predating that meeting, I was a broker representing custom home builders, was buying single families, figuring out what my strengths were within real estate. Fell in love with the income approach and bought my first 8 unit, and bought it right off the MLS in a rough part of town, but went in there and changed it, and did really well with that deal, and said, okay, here's what I like, here's what I'm good at. And I went and found a partner that was that covered those gaps for me. So
what were those gaps at that time? What would you say you were not very efficient or effective at?
The gaps are still there, Scott. So
At least you
uh,
admit it.
yeah, no, 100%. I mean, we're just people here, and I think the more we can just be honest about ourselves, the more
Yep.
we can partner.
Successful we can be.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not running around thinking that I'm high detail or I
Yep.
love emails and going back and forth with lenders or doing a lot of the business management of the portfolio. So for me, I was great at on the ground. I'm great with comps. I'm great with the strategy. But for me, I oftentimes lose steam with the back and forth.
You've got
So
to be continuing to find deals, close deals, and that's kind of where you get your energy from, it sounds like.
yeah, yeah, in some ways. And then also getting into the asset, coming from a construction background, I love changing things. I love making
Yep.
things better. I love that, and really our tenant, who in a lot of ways I look at like myself. So yeah, I mean, just being customer centric as a natural trained salesperson. I love people. I love changing things, and I love real estate deals.
I love it. So how did you guys go from 2017, 2018, where you just started working together, to today? You guys are 1,500 units or so across upstate area. And what got you guys here? How did you guys grow so fast?
Yeah, so a lot of it was the timing of of the market, right? So I think any operator, syndicator, real estate person, it has to first say that acknowledge the facts that the market has been crazy since we've started in terms of the money chasing deals. But I'd say the core of it, and I'll hit you with the history points, but the core of it is that we have a unique value proposition. We know exactly who we are and who we're not, and that what we bring to the market is an incentive and a strategy that just wasn't present and really still isn't. So when we bought 63 units together, that was our first two deals. We went in and learned how to manage a manager, learned how to turn units with what I thought was scale, learned how to really just operate the business. Made every mistake, Scott. Whenever you want to get into my mistakes, man, I've got some big ones.
That's a whole nother show.
That's a whole nother show. We'll do that first too, guys. Make sure you tune in. But
Yeah.
once we did that first 63 units, we a very similar conclusion. Here's what we're good at, and now I think we can go take this to friends and family to help support and come alongside us as we do more deals. So from 2017 to 2019, then we brought a couple hundred units. During that time, we partnered with a local nonprofit that was really sponsored by the city to do advocacy work and to really come alongside developers and teach them how to do housing in the Greenville community. So we partnered with them. They taught us how to do the property tax abatement, and really my eyes were opened during that experience. It was like, wow, if we go in, we add the value, we hit our pro forma business plan in terms of moving rents up over time, we still qualify for a property tax abatement, and we did. So that became the juice, right? So
Let's talk about that a little bit. Explain exactly what you mean by this to somebody that does not do anything in real estate. How does a property tax abatement make it more affordable, or give you the ability to do a project versus not doing a project? What's that financial gain for an affordable housing developer?
Yeah, great question, and thank you for slowing me down. It's so nuanced, and I've lived it for so long that it's just kind of part of who I am. But
Yeah.
the property tax abatement basically reflects 20% of a multifamily property's operating expense. We'll use an example. Late toward the end of last year, we bought a 360 unit complex here in Greenville, and as we underwrite that deal, as we set our stabilization period, as we set, hey, what do we want to take rents? What type of, how are we going to implement a RUBS program? How are we do all the things that an operator normally does? We also delete the $860,000 that go under the property tax section, right? So, I think it helps to really simplify and say, hey, multifamily is based on the income approach.
Yep.
It's all about NOI, baby. So if I can cut the operating expenses by 20% with paperwork, execution risk is less. It's statutory, and it comes without any negotiation, right? So that's really that's what creates the impact for us. So
So property taxes, you're saying 20% of your overall cost is where
operating
you guys are.
our annual operating expenses it reflects 20%. In South Carolina,
Holy cow.
property taxes are higher than most parts
Okay,
of.
I was going to say 10% about going rate, maybe 11 here, but I mean even that would be huge. But 20%, Jesus Christ, your property taxes are outrageous.
Yeah. So by getting rid of those, I mean now we can pay more money for a deal, more things pencil, and it really attracted a lot of capital. So over the last 3 years, really, I mean, it's the bulk of it. We've raised $55 million from investors
Wow.
that want to come alongside. We're both creating, for the first time for them, an economically productive, affordable housing proposition, right? Something that's both socially impactful in the community, but economically productive, generating them, market rate returns. And I'd say that it's de-risked. We're not just counting on Mario's ability to go turn a unit and know the market best.
Yeah.
It's a law, right? And we're just adding and layering that in.
Are you guys doing, so you guys aren't doing a ton of ground up development then? You're usually going into value add type product?
That's right, Scott. So
Okay.
because of the cost of construction, believe it or not, that abatement still doesn't make a deal. It doesn't de-risk a deal enough for
No.
us to take on the speculation of a new development.
Yeah.
So we've instead decided to grow wide, really, I guess, wider or deeper rather. So by taking our nonprofit who helps us layer that property tax abatement incentive over our portfolio, we take that to other owners in North Carolina and South Carolina, and we come in as the consultants to help them implement a very similar program that we've been able to figure out. Not many times, Scott, do you get a call with someone that wants to save you money, right? So,
No.
So in an inflationary environment like this, we found great absorption. So there's about another 1,000 units of owners. We're already in the naturally occurring affordable housing space. Just didn't know how to do all the layering.
Yep.
And
when you say layering, explain this. So you're layering different benefits on top of each other to make it affordable for you guys to do. Is that what I'm understanding?
In the classic, yes, in terms of, and I think I might be misusing the definition here. What I mean is just layering it into the value add.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, they might have their own value add strategy to improve NOI, and they underwrote that, raised to it. Here's another layer that allows you to juice those returns, but most importantly, have more grace with the residents that live at the property today.
That's what it's all about at the end of the day. And a lot of people, I think, forget that in the midst of all of this. We become too focused sometimes on, not we, but a lot of people, all they can see is the dollar signs here and there. But the reality is the tenant and the people living in these facilities are the number one thing above all else, right?
Man, from your lips to God's ears. Yes, it really
and
is.
how can we make these things as good as possible? Living condition, amenities, everything else, and still keep them affordable for these individuals to live in. That's the challenge we face every day, because it's very hard already from the start to keep things what we call affordable. And we also want to provide a good product, but it almost becomes impossible in a lot of ways because everybody knows construction costs, labor costs, all that's gone up, and you guys are really fighting that good fight. I mean, how can we layer things on top of each other and really make this work for individuals?
Yeah, I think that oftentimes you focus, or the market focuses on bricks and sticks, cheap money, cheap debt. I think for us, it's really been about, like, how do we add more value than we ask for in rent? How do we do that? If that's where we start, then typically there is a solution, there is a way, and not to put this in the rose-colored glasses because it's not easy.
Oh,
The deals that we bought early on in Greenville versus the deals that we bought last year, you know, totally different. So it's really in terms of the cost per door, the cost of construction, all the things like the deals are even tight with the abatement in place.
yeah.
So it's not an easy solution. It's not easy, but I do think that lived experience, like or observed experience in terms of the problems that we've been introduced to in our market and the nonprofits that we interface with, really hearing those stories and understanding how the for-profit community really doesn't see enough incentive to work with a nonprofit or a governmental entity. So I think that's really kind of my claim and my kind of like for your listeners, really in their own respective markets to think about, just because it's a nonprofit, just because it's affordable housing, doesn't mean it's devoid of a for-profit. It's not devoid of profit, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
So-
nonprofits are profitable. That's what people don't understand is a lot of nonprofits are very profitable. You just have to reinvest those profits back into that nonprofit to continue doing better for society or whatever your mission is that you're focusing on. And that's kind of that lack of understanding by your normal everyday people is they don't realize that. They're just not in it. And I can't fault people for not knowing that, but let's not be too quick to judge if we don't understand what's actually going on in a lot of these.
That's right. That's right. So for me personally, it's been awesome to really be a champion of our business, just in terms of like what's possible for folks. Right. And I loved talking to you at Reconvene. I mean, what a great conference,
Oh yeah.
I mean, at the most lush, amazing, place, like, but being able to talk to folks like yourself who have market skill and applying it to a community need.
Yeah.
That's the magic that's the energy that burns forever, right? It burns clean. It has the humility that it also takes to like be really, really successful because you're faced with humanity every day, right? But I think that it's, oftentimes it's the assumption that, hey, if I've got market rate skill, I can't do that type of stuff. I mean, how am I going to get paid? How am I going to get my claim is that, hey, I mean, if you're doing community good, you should be paid more. Right?
I totally agree.
So it really, to your point, it's not about pointing a finger, but it is about educating. So thank you for having me on your platform to talk about what might be possible for what's been possible for us, but what might be possible for any of your listeners to kind of just dive in and see where you can help your community with something.
Absolutely. And there are so many opportunities out there. It becomes a point of there's so much going on. What do I focus on? Right. That's such a hard thing to hammer down. And you guys have really taken this niche of, okay, affordable tax credits. We're going to take this and we're going to run with it and be the best at it. We know other guys that are doing, down in Dallas, they're doing the opportunity zone type stuff. And there's huge opportunities there, but you can't do all of it. So really trying to hammer down and understand the one or two and then go from there and grow. Like we were talking about at Reconvene, are you guys, you said layering earlier. So I was starting to think, okay, are you layering additional benefits on top of these tax benefits that you guys get? So things like conduit bonds, we talked about there, where they'll help with, the transportation authority can help with infrastructure costs. Well, that could be a huge deal if you guys are going out. Something like that can be a huge, especially on new development for what you guys are doing. Conduit bonds may not be as important, but there's so many other things that you can maybe start now stacking because you understand your one lane so well. How do we start doing even more? And what else can we add into this? Like you guys did with the nonprofit piece. Okay, well, this nonprofit will now allow us to expand into other ways that we would have never thought possible. Well, you didn't know that day one, but I mean, maybe you did. I didn't know that day one when I started working on the nonprofit side. But now my mind's blown even more that holy cow, there are so many additional things now we can stack and continue to grow this thing and doing better for everybody.
Scott, after our conversation at Reconvene, I really started like talking to you about it, like really kind of got me thinking about why don't people accept this? And not that they don't, but like, what's the tripping hazard for them, or what's the? And I think it's that they think a nonprofit should not make a profit first off. And to your point, it can't make a profit, just needs to reinvest. But I think of my nonprofit as the government nonprofit incentive facing side of my business.
I
Right.
love that.
So I've got my activity over here. How can this nonprofit help support that if I am truly doing missional work?
Yep. No, I think that is the best way that I've heard that put. That is great. It's almost like an oversight board, just making sure that you're doing things right, but then can also help you do them better and more efficiently.
That's right. So for us, the compliance part, the compliance component is important to me because I want to get the tax abatement. So
It's absolutely important. That's the most important.
So I want the nonprofit having a staff member that comes and looks at our rent rolls and make sure that we're in harmony. So that's really it really can be a productive department of your business. I think departmentalizing it or compartmentalizing it is the way to think about it. And to your point, like I didn't know anything about, how we could sell the service or but with focus comes clarity. With focus comes innovation. With focus comes impact. And I think so many of us are just spread thin in terms of the types of things we do and the strategies that we use with them, with the number of partners we work with, and that we're not able actually to like transcend from being an investor to an operator.
Yep. No, that's exactly what, when it comes to the affordable housing piece of it, I'm going to ask you a few more in-depth questions here. So I hope you're ready for this. Things like land costs and regulatory barriers really impact affordability anywhere across this country. Can you talk about what are the most significant challenges that you guys face and encounter, and what solutions have you guys been able to implement to get over those barriers that maybe are holding you back and causing challenges for you guys to continue to grow?
Yeah, so I think the challenges of today are definitely a lot bigger than those early on. I won't get into the weeds of the property management business, but that was a really sore subject for me over the years. Just knowing that my core values, why we bought these investments, wasn't necessarily reflected in the property manager and the way they treated my tenant. So that was a major thing to kind of get over. So we started our own property management company, and we've got good hearts, and we're working on it now. I think today the biggest problem for us is, like a lot of us, Scott, like cheap debt and cheap equity. So we've purchased all of our deals with the syndication model, deal by deal, check by check, pitch by pitch. I think for us to truly be able to hold on to the portfolio that we've aggregated, we need to roll this up into some type of fund mechanism. If it's a debt fund with the participation of local municipalities and banks for CRA credit, or partner with foundations and corporations that understand that the wage they pay their employee reflects the housing cost that the employee takes on. So I think that, so really right now we've been in exploration trying to understand how we can roll this up, because in 2 years, debt starts to come due. And if I've got to refi in a 7% market, an 8% market, Miss Ethel in unit 105, her rent's going up. Right? Because we have debt covenants. We've got employees. We've got folks that are actually doing the work and in the community. And so we've got it's almost like the producer price index, right?
Yep.
Right. It gets passed on. And people are already getting squeezed. So
one thing I should have asked you on that point, one thing I should have asked, and I'm into, how long are these property tax credits for?
So remember, this is just a pure abatement applied for annually and renewed annually. So we can, so it's super flexible. We can take the property to market if we wanted to. However, I couldn't get $1,600 in rent at a complex I couldn't get that anyway. So I'm incentivized to keep it in place.
Got
But
it.
the next owner would see the opportunity in it and say, "Hey, I'm taking rents. I'm going to buy it, and the rents are under market, and I'm going to put more money into it and take rents even higher."
Got it. Okay, so this is an ongoing. So does the local municipality have money set aside to offset this for themselves then?
So no, I don't know. So the great part is
So it's
for
not
us,
like a big grant or like the infrastructure bill or a different bill that was passed. They're just saying, "Hey, we're just going to waive them. We're going to not get any property tax on this property right here because it's doing better good for the community."
yeah. So
Okay.
a couple things. So it's done. It's an IRS tax provision that our state is opted into. So that's the first piece, and it's done in Columbia, the Department of Revenue. That's where we send our application. That's who checks our compliance, does our audits.
Got it.
So we get to bypass let's call it the localism that can so
Wow.
oftentimes throw projects off. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes complete sense for me. Somebody that's listening might not understand it as well, but that's awesome. I had no idea that was even a thing. That's eye opening
It is mind blowing. It's mind blowing.
because all these counties, cities, everybody they want their money. So getting anything passed like that is pretty crazy. Usually they only do it if they receive funds from the government in another way for doing these type of things.
So yeah, so one thing, if you have some more discerning listeners that, hey, where's that money coming from? So the property tax dollars in at least South Carolina are oftentimes, for the most part, allocated towards schools.
Yep,
So,
exactly.
so wow, Mario, are you telling me that you're taking money from schools for affordable housing? So if we kind of go back to the book, right? Go to the academic perspective of what we're talking about. There's a Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yep.
So most
Housing.
housing's first. How good is the education if he's homeless?
Yep. If
Not
they're
good.
having to bounce around, not sleeping at night, getting kicked
Yep.
out of their rental all the time, that's a huge problem.
Yep. So for us, we see it as kind of part and parcel to the base of our community. So we have no issue with taking those dollars and applying those to
I
the
love that.
community in this way. And education will take care of education, but we need to make sure people are housed first.
Yeah. Food, shelter, clothing. 3 most important things some human needs.
That's why I love you, Scott, because you got deep water, man. I really
Hey, we think a lot alike. I mean, at the end of the day, this is one of the things I'm most passionate about too, is trying to find ways. And you mentioned it a minute ago, the property management piece. And we don't have all day, so I can't dig in super deep. But from what I'm hearing, it sounded like you were saying, hey, the property managers weren't managing our properties maybe the way that we want, but more importantly, they weren't taking care of our tenants, or they were treating them differently than what we felt they really should have been treating them. And that's something that I face and deal with a lot on my properties as well, because I'll go in and I will buy very rough properties across a town, wherever, and the first thing everybody wants me to do is clean that property up. Well, guys, let's take a step back real quick. I can't come in. First of all, there's already this bad perception of investors that all they do is come in, they kick out, they clean up, they sell and make a bunch of money, right? Well, yeah, some investors might do that, but the reality is there's also guys out here like Mario and myself that are going in, and I am buying dump properties. Unfortunately, it's I love it and I hate it at the same time, but I'm also not going to go in and kick those individuals out right when I buy these properties. The reality is a lot of the times that's their home. They've created it and made it the way it is. Unfortunately, sometimes it is the landlords, but more often than not, the properties we're buying, those individuals have been there for sometimes decades renting that thing. And who am I to go in there and kick them out of what they've built? Even if it is kind of a dump, that's not me to judge them for where they live and what they've done, right? So I have a hard time explaining that to a lot of these cities, because the first thing the city wants me to do as soon as I buy a property, they'll come and start haggling us. Hey, we want this thing cleaned up. We want this thing torn down. We want to redevelop. Well, guys, as soon as I do that, I'm also going to have to double the rents. my property taxes are going to go up. It's going to cause everybody else around me, their property taxes to start going up. So let's think a little bit deeper here versus just saying we need this now.
Let's preserve an affordable housing asset that's in our community. So for us, there's a couple things, Scott. One, thank God that you're in your community doing the work. Thank God you're buying those properties, right? It's rare that that tenant is the beneficiary of your training, your education, your resources, right? So they get the benefit of you. But second, it's there's two different types of stabilization. Obviously, there's the financial stabilization of an asset, but then there's there's three. There's the physical stabilization, deferred maintenance, cleaning it up, giving it some I say pride, some attitude and effort, some give a shit. And because of that, we're able to, because we do all that, we are going to ask for, on average, our existing tenant base, inherited tenants. I mean, it's within 7 to 9%, so they're paying $500. We're giving them a $50 increase, right? After we've spent $1 million. Sure, when units go vacant, we put 15 grand in and we renovate them and we take those to $1,000, right? But we kind of really step those tenants, those inherited tenants, like down the road, and inevitably, like there's a lot of turnover in Class C property, so that actually plays with this business plan. And kind of the last point I would make, just speaking to like, hey, the thought process and the living standards that the tenant has established and the landlord's allowed, for me, I'm doing it for the kids. Like, I'm doing it for the kid that lives in unit 2 who should be able to play outside without stepping through dog shit. I'm doing it,
and they should be able to sleep comfortably at night without having to deal with, not having the AC, the heat, whatever it is, to be comfortable and sleep, so you can wake up the next morning, get a good education, and feel comfortable and safe in your own bed.
Yeah, communities of pride or communities of opportunity. So how can I,
man, this man is full of quotes. I love this.
I was an English major in college, so I read a lot, but
the one-liners.
Dude, one-liners sum it up the best. But
I love it.
How could, Scott, do you have kids?
I do not.
So
beside Ryan there on the other side of this mic, but
well, I do. I've got 2 boys. How could I tell them to clean their room and have some pride, leave things better than you found it, son, when people in the community are dumping trash on my front porch every morning?
Yep.
How can I do that? I can't. I mean, we just accept what is, and every right. So I think really the work you're doing, I'd encourage you to think about it this way. And I think about us this way. It's like, hey, we are actually bringing pride and dignity to the space, right?
Yeah.
Sure, the city wants its pound of flesh and it wants things. It wants affordable housing, yet it doesn't want this property. Like, well, how's that work?
It doesn't. And that's what I butt my head against the wall all the time, talking to these cities saying, hey, we want this, we want this, we want this. But do you really? Because what you're telling me and what you're actually doing doesn't add up.
What you're telling me is you don't want complaints. And excuse me if I don't let the transitory emotion of the moment like impact me at all.
Yeah.
So
hang on, what'd you say there? You said communities of pride or communities of hope. Is that what you said?
So it's actually an FDR. It's an FDR quote, and it's communities of pride or communities of opportunity.
Of opportunity, I love it.
So if I have pride in where I live, when the school bus drops me off and there's not trash everywhere, that's where things are. That's where economic mobility is. And as we talked about property managers, our biggest issue was that they didn't understand that we are not the destination. We're a stepping stone. I don't want my tenant here forever. I want, I understand the inelastic demand, that there's always going to be people that need affordable housing, but I want this person to move on up and out. I want them to buy a house. So really designing the property management company around that. So for us, we report positive payments to to the three credit bureaus. We give them ways to break their payments up in half so that they can pay the half between the first and the fifth, and the second half between the 15th.
That's a big deal, and a lot of people will hear that and maybe not think that that's that big of a deal. To these tenants, that is massive. That's one of the biggest problems that when we get new tenants, that's one of the first things a lot of them will ask for because of the way that they're paid. And a lot of landlords will not accept that, which is absurd to me. It's the same amount of money. It's just broken up into 2 payments. Even 4 payments. I'll do a payment a week if that's what we need to do. Like, let's set it up to where it works for you because I need you to be successful too.
It's people just don't think, Scott, and
True.
so because you actually make more money that way, right? So
You
for
do.
us, so if it's $1,000 rent, we know this person's living paycheck to paycheck. We know that that Americans have less money in their savings account than ever. If they can go 500 and 500, what we charge them is basically a $8 processing fee on both payments. So they're paying $1,016 in that flex pay program versus paying $1,100 a month because they are always late.
Yep.
Right. So they pay less. We take that, I think it's $16 as straight fee, right? For that within our property management company because the program it's running. So we make more. The tenant does better. And the biggest impact is that, again, dignity. How many times can I be late on a phone call with you, Scott, till I stop looking you in the eyes?
Exactly.
Right? If I'm late every month, right? Like there's something that does to us, right? As people, like when we are always behind, always late. So that's the kind of the stable, and I kind of jumped around earlier. The stabilization of the tenant is really the biggest part. Not everyone makes it in terms of our, from when we buy to when we stabilize, but we really want folks that understand and appreciate, their credit score. Two, that we're thinking about the on flex pay, the neighborhood's cleaner. That if they don't appreciate that and that we're charging them well below market rate, they're not for us, and that's okay.
I love that. I got a property here in town that I'm looking at acquiring. I'm going to be calling you on because I want to get this whole deal set up kind of like you guys are doing to see if we can actually take advantage of this IRS code because it is a lower income, but it's a pretty big investment. So I need to trying to find ways of making it work. And this might actually be the way that I can get it to work if we're able to do this in Missouri. Now we could talk all day. We gotta get this thing. I'm going to end it here on a question for you. And I think we kind of talked about it, or at least we started at the very beginning, or maybe it was before we started. Me and you and I were chatting about it. Can you explain the distinction between affordable living and workforce housing?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's all income based, right? So workforce housing, we're talking about folks that are at 80 to 120% the area median income, right? So teachers, cops, firefighters, police officers, right? That's who we're talking about, right? And actually, some police officers are actually in the lower rung of just let's call it affordable, that middle section, that missing middle, affordable housing. I love to tell investors, like, hey, if you care about your son's teacher, you should care about affordable housing, right? Yeah. But so affordable housing is that middle section between call it 40% the median income and 80% the median income. That's usually made up of service workers, baristas, folks that go to work. They still go to work every day. And then lastly is the subsidized housing, which listeners oftentimes that's what they're thinking about when they think about the whole category of affordable housing. That's where the government comes in through a project-based voucher or a low-income housing tax credit program and basically pays the owner directly for everything. There's no increases. They're just it's a quote unquote project. So that's 0 to 40%. Again, 40 to 80% that missing middle, true affordable housing, and then 80 to 120 being the workforce housing. So those are the kind of the categories. Though that's my understanding. That's our working understanding. Though I mean, it's such a localized so localized, because what's affordable in LA isn't affordable in South Carolina, and somehow people just use the terms all over the board.
Yeah, affordable is just a crazy buzzword that has come to accept over the last probably decade, and I think it's crazy because there's so much difference and distinction between them, in my opinion. But that's what everybody relates affordable to. So guys like you and I have to help people understand these are completely different, yet they're the same. Like they're different within the same. So
Yeah, I think the last thing I would say, and I missed this, in the subsidized housing, those people are on government subsidy,
yes,
and and they don't go to work every day, right?
correct.
So that's not a moral judgment. That's an observation.
Yeah, no, it is. And there's all types of different subsidy programs out there, previously hurt people from different, things. And there's all types of stuff. So there's no judgment at all in that. There's, hundreds. Well, Mario, I appreciate you so much. I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show. Tell our listeners where people can find you, where they can follow you. You've got an amazing Twitter. You're always posting great content. Drop off where people can find you or get a hold of you if they would like.
Yeah. So our website's affordableupstate.com. Scott, Twitter. I love Twitter, man. It's so cool. The affordable housing CRE Brother, right? Instead of a real estate bro, I'm a real estate brother. So affordable housing CRE Brother on Twitter, and happy to kind of have conversations in and around the subject, and love all types of real estate. But Scott, thank you so much, man, for being
Absolutely.
such a champion of your community, man. Seriously, when you told me about what you were doing,
trying to do it in a lot of ways, but not even at close to your scale, man. That's the reality is, but we do a lot of the same too, which is kind of cool. We're going to be doing things together in the future. I can promise you that.
Yeah, it was synergistic for me, man, because I don't meet many guys that understand, hey, you got to have market skill, but you also got to have a heart, right?
Yep. Exactly right. Look, it can all be fun, but we can also take care of people. So, Mario, thank you so much. Thank you guys for listening to the show. We will be back as always. See you guys later.